Good day, viewers. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy the news today. Please feel free to share what you think and feel. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.
Comrades of Africa, brothers and sisters from across our beloved continent, we are living in a time when the soul of Africa is being auctioned, where leadership is no longer about principle, but preservation, where liberation movements have turned into elite clubs, and we are told to keep quiet, to be patient, to wait for reform. But I say the time for waiting has passed. Our people are tired of begging for the fruits of their own soil. Look at South Africa, a land rich with struggle, a people who fought so fiercely for freedom. But what do we see today? A ruling party that was once a symbol of defiance, now defending privilege. A government that speaks of transformation, but bows to capital. A president who speaks of unity, but governs through caution and compromise. President Ramaphosa, with all due respect, what legacy will you leave? You had a chance to ignite the dreams of Mandela with the courage of Sankara, but instead, you sit in boardrooms while shacks grow around the cities. You promise jobs while the youth rot in unemployment. You speak of renewal but protect the same structures that bleed your people. This is not leadership, this is management of decline. And so I say, Africa must choose. Do we continue to follow those who fear the discomfort of radical change, or do we chart a path that places the people first, not in slogans, but in action? The boldness we need is not reckless violence, but fearless justice, a willingness to break with the systems that keep us dependent, exploited, divided. I did not rise to power to wear medals or sit in air-conditioned offices. I came to remind our people that revolution is not a memory, it is a responsibility, that liberation is not a museum, it is a movement. Burkina Faso chose to rise, not because it was easy, but because we were dying slowly while waiting for permission to live. If Africa wants dignity, then Africa must be brave. It is time to stop admiring failure dressed in diplomacy. It is time to expose the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. The ANC of old would weep if it saw what the ANC of today has become, but it is not too late. Not for South Africa, not for the continent. The fire is still burning. Let us carry it forward, not just with speeches but with sacrifice, honesty, and the courage to break away from every master who ever told us we are not enough. Africa will rise, but only if we dare to rise with it. Leadership requires courage, not comfort. Leadership is not about maintaining one's image in the international press, nor is it about being praised by those who once colonized and enslaved our people. True leadership is about standing in the fire with your people when the world turns its back. It is about making decisions that may not be popular in Paris, Brussels, or Washington, but are right in Ouagadougou, Johannesburg, or Lagos. When I speak of courage, I do not mean bravado. I do not mean empty slogans shouted from podiums while policies remain unchanged. I speak of the kind of courage that risks everything to restore dignity to the African people. That kind of courage has become rare. Too many of our so-called leaders have exchanged their revolutionary convictions for boardroom privileges. They now prefer negotiations with mining corporations over negotiations with their own people. They prefer investor confidence to the confidence of the hungry mother in the village who still walks kilometers to find water. They sit in offices signing agreements that allow the extraction of our wealth, while our children sit in overcrowded classrooms or drop out altogether. Cyril Ramaphosa is not the only one, but he is the most symbolic because he leads a nation that once inspired the world. South Africa was the beating heart of resistance against apartheid. It was the flame of hope that reminded us that no matter how brutal a system, the people could overcome it. But look at what has happened now. The same party that once produced heroes like Chris Hani and Steve Biko now produces scandals, silence, and soft hands toward exploitation. Under Ramaphosa, the ANC has become more interested in managing inequality than eradicating it. There is no courage in that. There is fear of confronting the rich, fear of upsetting the West, fear of radical change. But I say this. If your leadership does not disturb the comfortable, it is not leadership. If your leadership only exists to maintain the peace of the wealthy while the poor suffer in silence, then you are not leading, you are managing the status quo. Africa does not need managers. Africa needs visionaries. We need men and women who are willing to be hated by the powerful if it means they can be loved by the people. We need leadership that takes risks, not for personal gain, but to free the continent from the systems that have held us in chains long after colonial flags came down. Leadership is sacrifice. It is long nights without sleep, knowing your decisions carry the weight of millions. It is being willing to lose everything so that the people can gain something. That is what we are trying to do in Burkina Faso. We are not perfect, and we make mistakes, but we are not afraid to confront the truth. We know that if we keep pretending that everything is fine, we will keep dying slowly from poverty, from terrorism, from the psychological wounds of dependency. And this is what pains me most when I see what is happening in South Africa. You have the power, you have the institutions, the wealth, the history of struggle, yet you choose moderation. You choose gradual change while the mines are still owned by the same corporations. You speak of progress while millions remain in informal settlements, living in conditions no human being should endure. Where is the courage to challenge these conditions? Where is the fire that once burned in the ANC? I am not saying leadership should be reckless. I am saying it must be bold. There is a difference between recklessness and resolve, between chaos and conviction. Courageous leadership listens to the people, not only to consultants. It dares to ask difficult questions. It refuses to accept that Africa's only role in the world is to export raw materials and import dependency. It builds education, not empires for the elite. It puts agriculture before luxury imports. It prioritizes sovereignty over applause from the World Economic Forum. Many African leaders today wait for approval from outside before acting inside their own countries. They wait for development aid instead of developing themselves. They say they are being pragmatic, but I ask, what has this pragmatism delivered? Have we ended hunger? Have we ended youth unemployment? Have we ended foreign control of our resources? No. What it has delivered is more of the same: conferences, communiques, and continued suffering. That is not courage. That is cowardice, dressed in diplomacy. Africa needs to wake up. And for that to happen, its leaders must be the first to wake up. The people are ready. They have always been ready. They are the ones who rise at dawn to work the land. They are the ones who continue to believe, even after decades of betrayal. What they need now is not another campaign promise. They need leadership that walks beside them, eats with them, suffers with them, and fights for them. That is the leadership I believe in. That is the leadership we must demand across this continent. From Ouagadougou to Pretoria, from Nairobi to Dakar, from the smallest village to the highest office, let it be known, we will no longer follow those who choose comfort over courage. Africa must rise, and only fearless leadership can make that rise possible. The ANC has lost its revolutionary spirit. What was once a movement of the people has become an institution of the powerful. It has gone from resisting the apartheid regime to preserving the comfort of the post-apartheid elite. This is not a betrayal that happened overnight, and it is not the failure of one man alone. It is the slow erosion of principle by convenience, of radicalism by rhetoric, and of people's power by political careerism. The ANC that once dared to confront the most brutal system in modern history now struggles to confront the banks, the corporations, and the legacy of inequality that still poisons South Africa's soil. When we were young, we looked to South Africa with hope. We saw Mandela, Sisulu, Tambo, and Biko not as saints, but as symbols of what Africa could become. The struggle in the townships of Soweto, the resistance in the mines, the defiance of youth in the face of military oppression, all of it gave strength to movements across the continent. South Africa was not perfect, but it had a spirit, a fire. That fire was the belief that political freedom must be matched with economic freedom, that black liberation meant not just voting but owning the land, the means of production, and the future. But now I ask you, where is that fire? Where is the commitment to economic justice when land reform remains a promise buried in paperwork? Where is the spirit of equality when wealth remains in the hands of a few and black poverty continues to deepen? Where is the radical transformation when policies are designed to please foreign investors instead of liberating the youth from the chains of unemployment? Under Cyril Ramaphosa, we do not see the rebirth of a revolutionary movement. We see its funeral, attended by smiling men in suits, speaking of renewal while doing everything to avoid upsetting the established order. They talk of building consensus, but with whom? With the mining houses that have looted the earth, with the corporations that dictate the terms of national policy, with the consultants who design economic models that never touch the streets of Kailicha or the rural Eastern Cape. This is not what the people fought for. This is not what Chris Hani gave his life for. He spoke of the need for the working class to lead, for socialism to be the true destination of the struggle. He was not assassinated because he was polite. He was killed because he threatened the interests that still control South Africa today: white capital, multinational corporations, and the global financial system that thrives on black suffering. The ANC has forgotten this. It now walks hand in hand with the very forces it once condemned. Its leaders live behind walls while the people live behind broken promises. They campaign with struggle songs, but govern with neoliberal policies. They remember the past when it is convenient, but they betray it every time they sign away the country's wealth to foreign-owned companies. Let me be clear. I do not hate the ANC. I grieve for what it has become. I grieve for the comrades who died believing in a future that now feels further away than it did 30 years ago. I grieve for the mothers who believed that democracy would bring food to the table and dignity to their sons. I grieve for the youth who were told that education was the key, only to find the door still locked by inequality and corruption. We must speak honestly. There can be no revolution without truth. The ANC has become a machine for electoral survival, not a force for social transformation. Its leaders speak of national development plans and long-term visions while failing to address the immediate needs of the people. They defend institutions that do not serve the people. They compromise with those who offer nothing but further domination. And this is why I speak not just to South Africa, but to all of Africa. Do not worship movements. Do not assume that because a party once led a revolution, it will always serve the people. Revolutions are not inherited. They are renewed through struggle, through courage, through action. If we keep supporting leaders who have abandoned the people, we become complicit in our own oppression. I say this to the youth of South Africa. You do not owe blind loyalty to any party. You owe loyalty to the truth, to justice, to the vision of a free, equal, and prosperous Africa. If the ANC cannot return to its roots, then you must build something new. If it cannot confront the banks, then you must. If it cannot reclaim the land, then you must. The power is with you, not with them. Africa's future will not be written by those who protect the past. It will be written by those who dare to break from it. The ANC once showed us what was possible. Now it shows us what happens when movements become comfortable, when power is preserved instead of transformed. That is a lesson we must learn and never repeat. Let us not mourn the death of revolutionary spirit. Let us rekindle it. Let us build anew. Let us honor the struggle not with slogans, but with sacrifice, with service, and with the unshakable commitment to make real the promise of liberation. The struggle continues, and we must not let comfort be the coffin in which revolution is buried. Youth and the poor have been betrayed. This is not an accusation made lightly. It is a truth that echoes from the dusty streets of our townships to the forgotten corners of our rural villages. It is the silent cry of a generation that was promised freedom, but lives in chains. It is the loud silence that fills every room where politicians speak of progress, while millions of young people sit at home with degrees in hand and nothing to show for it. In South Africa, as in much of Africa, youth are told they are the future. They are praised in speeches, held up as symbols of hope, and courted during elections. But once the votes are counted, they are discarded like pamphlets. Their energy is not harnessed, it is ignored. Their talent is not cultivated, it is wasted. And their desperation is not addressed, it is criminalized. This is the greatest betrayal, that after centuries of colonialism, decades of apartheid, and years of promised transformation, the majority of young black South Africans remain on the margins of the economy. They watch as the children of the rich attend the best schools, access the best jobs, and inherit the best opportunities. They are told to work hard, but they are not given work. They are told to dream, but are never handed the tools to build those dreams. How can a young man believe in democracy when he has never tasted its fruits? How can a young woman believe in freedom when her stomach is empty and her future uncertain? We cannot speak of revolution if we do not place the youth at the center. We cannot speak of justice while the working class struggles to survive. The government speaks of reducing unemployment, but their solutions are crafted in boardrooms, not in the streets where the unemployed gather. They design policies based on numbers, not on lives. They do not ask the youth what they need. They tell them what they can't have. Under President Ramaphosa, the betrayal has deepened. There was hope that with his rise would come renewal, that he would tackle corruption, invest in education, and fight for the poor. But what has come instead is delay, excuses, and empty gestures. The rich are still rich, the poor are still poor, and the youth, who should be building the nation, are instead building nothing because they have been locked out. Look at the townships, look at the informal settlements. These are not statistics. These are communities full of potential that has been abandoned. Children walk long distances to under-resourced schools. Young people graduate with qualifications, but no opportunities. Parents sacrifice everything, only to watch their children fall into despair. This is not freedom. This is not transformation. This is a managed decline disguised as stability. Leadership must ask itself, who is it serving? Because from what we see, it is not serving the people. It is serving the markets. It is serving the old colonial economic model, where Africa provides cheap labor, raw materials, and silent obedience. And when the youth reject that silence, when they rise in protest, they are met not with understanding, but with rubber bullets. When workers demand dignity, they are labeled troublemakers. When the poor demand justice, they are told to wait. But we know that every delay is a death sentence. Every postponement of action is another young life wasted. And I say this to all leaders who think they can ignore the cries of the youth. You are mistaken, because the anger is rising. The betrayal is not forgotten. This generation is watching, and soon they will act, not out of hatred, but out of necessity. They will not wait for you to hand them the future. They will take it. That is why we must choose a different path. A path where education is not just a right in law, but a reality in life, where vocational training, digital literacy, and entrepreneurship are prioritized, not as slogans, but as daily investments. A path where land reform is not just discussed in parliament, but implemented in practice. A path where the informal economy is embraced and supported, not harassed and overregulated. The poor do not ask for miracles, they ask for fairness, for a chance to live with dignity, to work, to learn, to feed their families, to be heard. The youth do not demand perfection. They demand opportunity, and it is our duty as leaders not to lecture them, not to pacify them, but to serve them. Africa cannot rise while its young are unemployed. Africa cannot be free while its poor remain trapped. The true wealth of our continent is not in gold, oil, or diamonds. It is in the people, in the hands of the youth, in the backs of the workers. If we continue to waste them, we waste our future. Let us stop pretending that things are working. Let us stop reciting tired phrases while people starve. Let us tell the truth and face it with courage. The youth and the poor have been betrayed, but they will not be betrayed forever. A storm is coming, and those who fail to act with justice today will answer to the people tomorrow. I stand with the youth. I stand with the workers. I stand with the poor, because I know that when they rise, Africa rises, and I would rather rise with them in truth than fall with the powerful in silence. Radical change is not a threat. It's a necessity. It is not something we should fear. It is something we should embrace if we are serious about dignity, justice, and the future of Africa. I have said before, and I say again now, our people are not poor by mistake. They are poor by design. This design is not African. It was not made in our villages, and it does not serve our communities. It was imposed, sustained, and maintained by an economic system that was built to exploit us, drain us, and keep us in a position of permanent dependency. Those who say Africa must be careful with radical ideas are not speaking for the people, they are speaking for the status quo. They fear losing the comfort they have secured at the expense of millions. They use the word stability to defend a system that has been stable only for the elites, while the majority of our people live with hunger, insecurity, and hopelessness. They tell us to move slowly, to wait for the market, to attract investment, but we have waited. We have waited through structural adjustment programs, foreign loans, donor conferences, free trade deals, and diplomatic partnerships. We have waited for decades, and still our schools are broken, our youth are unemployed, our lands are taken and our resources are shipped abroad, while our people dig with their bare hands. The colonial system was not only political, it was economic, and yet even after the political flags changed, the economic chains remained. That is why, when I speak of revolution, I speak not of chaos, but of correction. The correction of an inherited system that still treats Africa as a supplier of raw materials and a consumer of foreign goods. The correction of a development model that puts profit before people, mining before education, and foreign investment before national sovereignty. Look at who owns the land. Look at who controls the banks, the mines, the energy. In too many of our countries, these are not African hands, and even where Africans hold titles, the systems they operate in are structured by foreign rules, foreign capital, and foreign interests. You cannot decolonize a society by changing flags while leaving the economy untouched. You cannot empower a people by teaching them to compete in a rigged game. Radical change means we must build an economy that works for Africans first. It means land redistribution not as an idea, but as a policy. It means nationalizing strategic resources, not for corruption, but for collective benefit. It means investing in local production, regional trade, and food sovereignty. It means rejecting the idea that our destiny must always be negotiated in foreign capitals and measured by foreign institutions. This is not extremism. What is extreme is the current system that allows billions to be made from African soil while African children starve. What is extreme is the idea that young people should accept unemployment in the name of economic realism. What is extreme is that we are still paying debts we never created and being lectured on governance by the same powers that once enslaved us. They call us radicals because we refuse to bow. They call us dangerous because we refuse to beg. But the real danger is silence. The real threat is inaction. The real violence is what happens every day under the so-called moderate policies that keep our people in misery while the elite shake hands with foreign investors at summits. And let us be clear, radical change is not about anger alone. It is about rebuilding. It is about healing the wounds of exploitation and finally doing what should have been done at independence. It is about creating new systems rooted in African values, solidarity, community, dignity, and justice. It is about building from the bottom up, not the top down. This will not be easy. It will require sacrifice. It will demand that we stop looking to former colonizers for validation. It will mean facing resistance, both from outside and within. There are those among us who have become servants of this exploitative system. They will fight to protect their privilege. They will accuse us of dividing society, of threatening stability, of scaring away investment. But what has that investment brought us if our people are still poor? What good is peace if it only protects injustice? We must be ready to stand firm because our generation has a duty not to repeat the mistakes of the past. We cannot pass on this broken model to the next generation and call it development. We must change it, and we must do so now. The time for small reforms has passed. The crisis is too deep, the urgency too real. The world will not give us permission to be free. We must take it, and we must define our future on our own terms. Radical change is not just a political position. It is the path to survival, the path to dignity, the path to a truly liberated Africa. Let them call us radicals. Let them call us rebels, but history will call us something else. Africans who finally stood up, not to destroy but to rebuild what centuries of exploitation have broken. This is not a moment for hesitation, it is a moment for courage, and in this moment I choose to walk with the people, boldly, decisively, and without apology. African unity must be based on action, not diplomacy. We cannot build a strong, free, and independent continent through declarations alone. We cannot continue to meet at summits and conferences, smile for the cameras, sign joint communiques, and then return home to continue serving foreign interests. Unity is not forged through speeches and slogans. It is forged in action, in struggle, and in the difficult but necessary task of holding one another accountable to the dreams of our people. Today, Africa is full of institutions. We have regional blocs, continental bodies, trade agreements, and memorandums of understanding. But what are these structures worth if they do not protect the African people? What value do they hold if they cannot prevent the exploitation of our land, the destruction of our environment, or the continued looting of our wealth? What is the purpose of unity if it is used to protect corrupt governments instead of confronting them? What is the use of brotherhood between leaders who refuse to speak the truth to one another? We must move beyond this performance of unity and build something real. Real unity is built when one nation's fight for sovereignty is every nation's fight. Real unity is when the people of Niger, of Mali, of the DRC, of Zimbabwe, of South Africa, and Burkina Faso see their destinies as intertwined, not in words, but in action. Real unity means that when one country rises against imperialism, the others do not distance themselves for fear of upsetting their sponsors. It means that when one government stands up to exploitation, the others do not whisper behind closed doors about how dangerous that path is. No, they should stand together, shoulder to shoulder, and say to the world, we are not for sale. We have allowed too much silence in the face of betrayal. Silence when our brothers are overthrown with the help of foreign powers. Silence when African governments shoot their own people for demanding bread and dignity. Silence when elections are stolen, when opposition voices are jailed, and when the people are robbed in broad daylight. That is not unity, that is complicity, that is cowardice dressed in diplomatic language. We must stop protecting each other's failures in the name of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism was never meant to shield the corrupt. It was meant to unite the oppressed. It was a call to arms, a shared dream of liberation. But now too many leaders invoke it, cover their own weakness, to avoid being questioned by their peers, to continue making deals that enrich the few while the majority suffer. If we are serious about African unity, then let us prove it. Let us unite to build our own military industries, so we are no longer dependent on the same countries that destabilize us. Let us unite to fund our own development banks, our own satellite programs, our own regional manufacturing. Let us unite to educate our youth with African values, African languages, and African priorities. Let us unite to protect each other's revolutions, not isolate them. When a people decide to take back their land, we should not fear for our economies. We should ask how we can support that courage. I am not interested in shaking hands with presidents who refuse to face the truth. I am not interested in being accepted into clubs where the price of entry is silence. I am not here to be liked. I am here to speak for the people who are tired of waiting, tired of pretending, tired of seeing the same old system continue under new African faces. What is the point of independence if we must still ask for permission to stand? Unity must mean mutual responsibility. When a leader fails his people, we should not remain quiet just because he is African. We must remind him of the duty he has taken. We must remind him that power is not for privilege, but for service. If our unity cannot include truth, then it is a fragile unity. If it cannot confront injustice among our own ranks, then it is hypocrisy. The people of Africa want to see results. They are not impressed by long speeches or high-level meetings. They want roads, jobs, food, security, and dignity. They want to see their leaders working together, not just to protect their power, but to protect their people. They want to see Africa rise, not in theory, but in reality. We have everything we need to be great. We have land, youth, knowledge, history, and strength. What we lack is the will to act together with integrity. That is what must change. We must begin to see ourselves not as isolated nations competing for foreign favor, but as one people fighting for a shared future. And that future will not be handed to us. It will not come through memorandums or smiles. It will come through sacrifice, through bold choices, and through the courage to speak and act with clarity and purpose. So I say to my fellow African leaders, let us stop pretending. Let us stop hiding behind diplomatic language while our people suffer. Let us build a unity that is brave, honest, and grounded in action, because the people are watching, history is watching, and the time to act is now, not with words, but with decisions that reflect the urgency of our situation and the depth of our responsibility. Let our unity be one that builds, one that liberates, and one that stands firm, not just in front of cameras, but in the hearts of the African people. That is the unity we need, and that is the unity I will fight for. The time to rise is now, not tomorrow, not after another summit, not after another set of promises that will never be fulfilled. Africa has waited too long. We have tolerated lies, tolerated theft, tolerated humiliation, and we have called it patience. But what has this patience brought us? It has brought us broken schools, empty stomachs, stolen resources, and leaders who are more accountable to foreign banks than to their own people. We have delayed for too long. We have been told to wait for growth, for investment, for development, and all the while our land is taken, our youth are wasted, and our hopes are buried beneath speeches. The time for excuses is over. It is time to rise, not with rage alone, but with clarity, with organization, and with a burning love for our people. There is no savior coming. No outsider will deliver us. No amount of aid, no international partnership, no clever economic trick will restore our dignity. We must do it ourselves. And for that, we must return to the values that gave birth to our first victories. We must remember what it means to struggle with honesty. We must remember what it means to serve without stealing. We must remember that leadership is a duty, not a business, that politics is not a path to personal wealth, but a responsibility to lift the people from suffering. Today, too many of our leaders have become comfortable in the halls of power. They have forgotten the pain of the streets, the hunger of the poor, the cries of the youth. They speak of progress, but they live in palaces surrounded by security, while the people live in fear. They manage problems instead of solving them. They blame the past while repeating its mistakes, and they ask the people to stay calm while they protect a system that benefits the few. But the people are not blind. They see the contradictions. They see how the elite send their children abroad while telling the poor to believe in broken local schools. They see how contracts are awarded to cronies while communities have no clean water. They see how wealth is extracted from under their feet, yet they remain barefoot. And they are asking, how long must we wait? The answer is, no longer. We must rise, not with chaos, but with purpose, not to destroy, but to rebuild. We must rise by organizing ourselves from the ground up. Grassroots empowerment is the foundation of real change. It is the Traore in the village who refuses to be exploited. It is the young woman who refuses to be silenced. It is the student who questions the system. It is the worker who demands justice. These are the real revolutionaries, not the ones with titles, but the ones with courage. And we must stop placing all hope in presidents, parties, or politicians. We must place our hope in the people, in their wisdom, their strength, their resilience. Change will come when communities reclaim their power, when neighborhoods become political schools, when the oppressed organize not to protest for a day, but to build for a lifetime. I have said before, and I say again, I am not here to be liked. I am here to speak the truth, and the truth is that many African leaders are standing in the way of Africa's rise. They are not enemies in name, but they are enemies in practice, because anyone who delays the liberation of the people, knowingly or by cowardice, is on the wrong side of history. Anyone who uses their position to enrich themselves while the people suffer is a traitor to the cause of Pan-Africanism. It is time for a new generation of leadership, not based on age, but on vision. Leadership that tells the truth, that listens to the people, that sacrifices personal gain for collective progress. We do not need perfect leaders. We need honest ones. We need those who admit when they fail, but never stop trying. We need those who walk among the people, not those who rule above them. This is the moment. Africa is not weak. We are strong, but we must believe in ourselves. We must trust that we can govern ourselves with dignity, manage our resources with integrity, and solve our problems with unity. The world will respect Africa when Africa respects itself, and that respect begins with action. If you are a youth, organize. If you are a worker, resist injustice. If you are a farmer, protect your land. If you are a leader, serve or step aside. If you are poor, know that your dignity does not depend on your wealth. It depends on your truth, your courage, and your will to rise. We cannot wait for permission. We must not ask for freedom. We must take it, and we must protect it with the same spirit that drove our ancestors to break the chains of colonialism. We owe it to them, and more importantly, we owe it to the generations that come after us. The time to rise is now, not for applause, not for fame, but for justice, for dignity, for Africa.